When I met Ayesha 10 years ago, I thought she was the perfect woman. We built a life together, bought a house, and had a daughter who meant the world to me. I worked hard running my own business, often late nights, to give my family the best life possible. For years, I believed our marriage was solid. But looking back now, I realize Ayesha was never interested in me. She was interested in what I could provide. It all started 3 months ago when Ayesha began behaving strangely. She became secretive, constantly glued to her phone, whispering during calls and deleting messages the moment she finished texting. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she was planning a surprise for my birthday. I couldn't have been more wrong. One Saturday afternoon, Ayesha walked into the living room with this dramatic, tear-streaked face and said, "Ali, there's something you need to know." I paused my work and looked at her, concerned. "What happened? Are you okay?" She hesitated, took a deep breath, and said, "A young man came to see me today. He says he's your son." I froze. "What?" She nodded solemnly. "His name's Saad. He says you had an affair 20 years ago before you met me, and his mother recently passed away. Now he wants to reconnect with you. His father." I laughed in disbelief. "Ayesha, that's ridiculous. I was 17 20 years ago. I didn't even have a serious girlfriend then." But she looked me dead in the eye and whispered, "He has proof, Ali." That's when Saad entered our home, a tall, handsome 22-year-old carrying a folder. He introduced himself politely, pretending to be nervous. He handed me old photos of a woman I didn't know and letters supposedly written by me. The resemblance between Saad and me was uncanny. He even showed a fake DNA report. My head was spinning. The documents looked real. The timing was suspicious. And Ayesha, she acted like she was devastated. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" she cried. "How could you keep a whole son from me?" I tried to protest, but she stormed off, slamming the door. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something didn't add up. My gut told me this was a setup. The next morning, I decided to investigate. I took the DNA report to a lab myself and discovered it was completely fabricated. The logo didn't even belong to a real medical center. My suspicion grew, so I started digging into Saad's background. After 2 days of quiet searching, I discovered something shocking. Saad wasn't my son. He was an actor. Not just any actor. He was a struggling drama student. And guess who had been paying him? Ayesha. I hacked into our joint bank account and found 3 recent transfers to Saad's name. I checked her emails and found an entire conversation where she instructed him on what to say, how to act nervous, even which fake documents to bring. Felt my blood boil. She wanted to frame me for having a secret son, humiliate me in front of my family, and then use it as leverage to divorce me, so she could walk away with half my assets and custody of our daughter. But instead of confronting her immediately, I decided to play along. Over the next week, I acted devastated and guilty. I told Ayesha I needed time to process everything. Secretly, I set my plan in motion. First, I called a lawyer and explained the situation. We started gathering evidence: the fake documents, her emails, the bank transfers, everything. Second, I secretly met Saad. I invited him for coffee under the pretense of wanting to get to know my son. When we sat down, I looked him in the eye and said, "Listen carefully. I know Ayesha hired you. I know you're an actor, and unless you help me, you'll go to jail for fraud." He froze. His hands trembled. Within minutes, he confessed everything. Ayesha had offered him a large sum to pretend to be my son, knowing it would create chaos in the marriage. But Saad admitted he didn't know it was part of a bigger plan to steal my assets. I offered him a deal: cooperate with me, and I wouldn't press charges. He agreed. A week later, I staged the confrontation. I invited Ayesha's family, my family, and a few close friends to our house, telling them I had something important to reveal about my secret son. Ayesha looked smug the entire evening, thinking I was about to confess and humiliate myself publicly. I stood in the center of the living room, cleared my throat, and said, "Everyone, Thank you for coming. Today, you're going to hear the full truth. I called Saad into the room. Ayesha smiled proudly, expecting him to back up her lies, but then Saad turned to everyone and said, Ayesha hired me. I'm an actor. She paid me to pretend I was Ali's son so she could destroy his reputation and take his money. The room went silent. Ayesha's face drained of color. He's lying, she screamed. Ali, don't believe him. I didn't even respond. I played a recording on my phone, Saad's earlier confession, where he detailed everything about her plan. Gasps filled the room. Her own parents looked at her in disgust. My family stared at her like she was a stranger. I turned to her and said calmly, You wanted to ruin me, Ayesha, but you ruined yourself. The next morning, I filed for divorce, armed with undeniable evidence of her fraud and manipulation. My lawyer destroyed her case in court. She didn't get a single rupee of my assets, and I won full custody of our daughter. Within weeks, she was forced to move out and live with her parents. Saad publicly apologized to me and even testified in court, confirming everything. As for Ayesha, her plan backfired so spectacularly that she became a cautionary tale among our friends and relatives. She tried to play the perfect con, but in the eye, and I played her better, and that, Shirjeel, was the most brutal revenge I've ever delivered.